Good morning, everybody. Now, we know for the last week and a half, people have been trying to wind everybody up to cause a massive clash in central London on Armistice Day, the 11th of the 11th. That didn't happen, thankfully. And there were two big events going on. The pro-Palestine march, which apparently had about 300,000 people in it, and then people gathering around the Cenotaph for the 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock. I don't know exactly how many people were there, but it was much, much smaller, maybe 10,000 or so, maybe even fewer. But the day passed off largely peacefully with very little happening. However, there were a couple of minor events which would have been seen as minor skirmishes or, little things happening, but they have been weaponized and blown up out of all proportion by the media because that's what they wanted, and they were there in the right place at the right time to capture things which look like people are jostling and starting a riot when they weren't. But they're there to capture it on film and take pictures and show the police arresting some random person. And then that's been weaponized all over the print press, the internet press, the broadcasting press today. So let's have a look at some of these things. We'll just talk about them. I'll put links to them in the comment boxes below. The first one is around the Cenotaph before the 2-minute silence. And lots of people gathered there, and that was completely quiet and respectful. Everyone fell absolutely silent for that period of time. But what it shows is that a lot of people gathered at the embankment beforehand with this character called Tommy Robinson, who isn't real. Tommy Robinson is a character played by Stephen Yaxley Lennon. He was one of a few people who encouraged a lot of people to go to central London. At least he was there. The other people, Douglas Murray and Lawrence Fox, weren't even there. Douglas Murray's over in Israel with a press flak jacket on, pretending he's a member of the press, and Lawrence Fox apparently was on a plane somewhere, nowhere to be seen. So they've been winding people up all week, but they weren't even there. And so you're left with a number of unfortunate patsies who went to central London, and about 100 of them got arrested in various places around the town. But so they gathered around Embankment, no trouble there. There was a little bit of trouble on Whitehall, or they tried to get in to go to the Cenotaph, and now the police had created a bottleneck. And they had 100, maybe 50 to 100 police manning the bottleneck, but then there were 1,000 or so people trying to get through so they could get to the Cenotaph. They were just overwhelmed, and the people who were then, wanting to go there just pushed through the line because they wanted to get to the Cenotaph. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that is the picture that they used, and that is the incident that people are using to say there were these EDL thugs in London and they were causing all kinds of trouble. Isn't it disgusting? That was one moment in the day. Yes, they probably shouldn't have pushed through the police lines like that, but there was very little actual violence, or there was no tension between them and the pro-Palestine march. They just wanted to get to the Cenotaph to pay their respects. But of course, the media, even the Prime Minister, released a statement where they've used that to create and further the narrative that there are all these far-right people going to London to cause trouble. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a setup. And some of the people who were there pushing through the lines were state agents, accelerators, agents provocateurs, spies, whatever you like to call them. And it was all set up to create that scenario, a big scene, which could then be filmed and then played to create the narrative. So that's one thing that happened. And then it just, when they got through the police line, went to the Cenotaph, and then everything just died down again. There were no further incidents at the Cenotaph in the morning. Everyone just got there who wanted to get there and paid their respects to the fallen and our fallen veterans and war heroes. Another thing that happened later on was a very bizarre incident at Victoria Station. Now, I thought this was going to happen. The pro-Palestine march was marching from Hyde Park past Victoria Station down to the River Thames on Vauxhall Bridge and down and across to the American Embassy. So they went past Victoria Station. I thought before that happened that a number of people would peel off and go and try to have a sit-in at Victoria Station, because it's too tempting for some of them not to do that. And that's exactly what happened. So a number of people, 1,000 or so perhaps, broke off from the march and went into Victoria Station and started chanting and harassing everybody and making life miserable for people who just wanted to use the station normally. Now, I saw a horrible scene there of a couple of people who were wearing poppies who got harassed by some very aggressive pro-Palestine people. And the police intervened. And first of all, because these people were white probably, they started harassing them and pushing them back before they realised that they were actually the ones being attacked. I mean, that's a horrible incident. Absolutely disgusting to see that. But, you know, it was an isolated incident. And there might have been more things like that, but it's horrible to see when that happens. The other thing that happened in Victoria Station, which was so bizarre that I think there is a very, very high probability that this is a setup, is that Michael Gove appeared apparently coming off a train on Saturday afternoon in the middle of a pro-Palestine march, because he wanted to come back to work in London, central London, go to the office in Parliament or something. And then he got surrounded by pro-Palestine supporters who started chanting and jeering at him. The police had to surround him and protect him and sort of like, chivvy him out of the station into a taxi or a car somewhere so he didn't get his head bashed in by pro-Palestine supporters. This is beyond, the bounds of believability, in my opinion, that this wasn't set up. Why would a member of the government appear in a station where there's a load of hostile protesters who he knows are going to cause him hassle, and possibly, if he's not protected, he's going to be in some severe physical danger? Where were his people? He's not going to travel on his own, on a train, on public transport, on a Saturday afternoon, into the middle of a hostile crowd, on a day where everybody's been winding up tensions for a week and a half, and suddenly a government minister appears in the middle of it, getting shouted at, and then these photographers and video people there to film it all, and then creates another story for the mainstream media to say, Gove harassed by Hamas. Sorry, that's just beyond ridiculous. I think that's just set up. It's all orchestrated. I mean, that's my opinion. I might be wrong. Let me know what you think. But I mean, that's just something that is there to feed the narrative. So that was one of the other main incidents that happened. Then you have a few arrests in Chinatown later on. So, Chinatown is not too far from the Cenotaph. I think it's a mile's walk or something, 15-minute walk. So apparently after the 11 o'clock 2-minute silence at the Cenotaph, a number of people followed Tommy Robinson, this character played by Stephen Yaxley Lennon, up to Chinatown, where there was a few sort of like people shouting into the air at the police. You saw them pushing somebody. People started to get wound up. So this looks like the accelerators winding people up. More people joined in. And then Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, gets into a taxi, goes away and leaves them all there. And the police arrest a load of them. And then this again creates another narrative. There's all these EDL thugs, far-right thugs, going all over London causing trouble, when actually there were just a few dozen of them, followed Tommy Robinson, the character, up to Chinatown. Some of them would be agents and accelerators. Unfortunately, some of them are just going to be patsies who followed them up there, who thought that they're going to like shout into the air to defend their country, and then they got arrested. And they're going to be dragged through the courts, and this is going to give more food for the media over the next few weeks, so that their pictures will be taken, and then they'll be creating stories and going, here's a far right thug. They'll look as they'll make them look as bad as they possibly can to create the narrative that British people are bad. So they've just played into the hands of the powers that be in the media and the government that actually hate them. It's very sad, but, I did try to warn people, other people, David Clues and so on at UNN have tried to warn people that this is kind of what's going on. But you see this, it's an isolated incident. If this just happened on a Friday night, it's the sort of thing that would happen on a Friday night in towns and cities all over the country. A few people get drunk and the little bit of argy-bargy starts. The police come in. The argy-bargy then turns to being between drunk people and the police. If someone's drunk, they never look good and they never look intelligent anyway. But then, they get arrested. But no one bats an eyelid, because this happens all over, the country every week. It shouldn't do. People shouldn't get drunk and violent, but unfortunately it does. But this is just exactly the same thing that so happened to happen in Chinatown about midday yesterday on Armistice Day, where there is an intense media and government psyop in operation. So these guys are the four guys, they're the patsies, and their lives are going to be ruined. And it's very, very sad that they're going to be used to do that. But they took the bait and played into the hands of those who want to stir up things and do not have the best interests of ordinary people at heart. So that's what happened. One of the things that happened anyway. There were a few people on the pro-Palestine march also with, offensive banners, and someone was, giving an interview to a media outlet where they were saying, Hitler had the right idea, was that a setup or not? I mean, would anyone in their right mind give an interview to a camera to someone you don't know and start praising Hitler on camera, like to a random stranger? But this has gone all over the place. It's been picked up by mainstream media to smear the pro-Palestine marches. And with 300,000 people, there's a few isolated incidents. Yeah, there's some hotheads who went into Victoria Station. They did some bad stuff. No question. But most of them were peaceful. But then you've got people who are doing this and saying ridiculous things to smear everybody. And the thing is with this, I guess the purpose of that, I wasn't there. Obviously, I've no interest in going to either of those events, because I just want to stop the slaughter in the Middle East, full stop. But I imagine that most of the people who went on that march went because they want to call for a ceasefire. And they're very, very concerned about Israel carpet bombing Gaza in retaliation for the Hamas's terrorist attack on the 7th of October. But now Israel has killed far, far more people than Hamas did, including 5,000 plus children. And they're bombing hospitals, they're bombing schools, they're bombing mosques, they're bombing the third oldest church in the world, St. Porphyri's Church in Gaza, which is absolutely horrendous. And it's horrific for the people, the ordinary people who are living in Gaza. Not Hamas, but 99% of the people who have been killed in Gaza are not Hamas. They're just innocent people, including children, thousands and thousands of children. And this is horrendous, and it's wrong. Yeah, Israel has the right to defend itself, but it doesn't have the right to kill thousands of children, innocent children. That's essentially a war crime. And this is what the people on the march for a ceasefire, I guess you could call it, want. But then these people shouting off about Hitler and, having very offensive placards in the air, gives the media and the government to spin the narrative that they're all pro-Hamas, that this is a pro-terrorist march, essentially. And that's essentially, you know, Rishi Sunak's statement, the Prime Minister's statement, condemns the people who went to the Cenotaph as EDL thugs. Essentially, he doesn't use the word far right, but I mean, that's essentially what he means. And then the people on the pro-Palestine march, mostly peaceful, mostly just wanting an end to slaughter, can then be smeared as pro-Hamas, essentially terrorist sympathizers. So this is smearing the vast majority of people there who are peaceful for both things, for both events, and to spin the narrative that everybody there was either, you know, in some way completely morally defunct and degenerate on either way. They're either a terrorist sympathizer or they're far right. Completely not true. But these isolated incidents have been weaponized, like I said they would, and like other people who could see into this and see what's going on could said that they would do. And of course, it takes, as I said, it takes focus off the purpose of this, which is to highlight what's going on in the Middle East and call for a ceasefire and to stop the slaughter. So we need to start talking about what actually is going on again, rather than the fabricated tensions in London, which are being used to drive a media narrative. But that wouldn't be happening if public opinion in this country, and also similar things in the USA, were not very important to control and manipulate and direct into a certain direction and to get people to think and feel certain things about what's going on. So they're taking your attention away from Gaza and focusing in your attention on things happening in this country to drive tensions between communities here in the UK. This is what is being done deliberately, and it's being weaponized, and you're going to see more of this over the next week or two. Just keep in your head, think about what's going on, understand the psychological manipulation that's happening and what they want to try to make happen over the next few weeks. They want everybody in this country who's here to start fighting each other, accusing each other, grow tensions between different communities, and start a general, you know, almost a civil war between people in this country. Don't let it happen, I would say. That's my advice. Just ignore the psyop and don't feed into it by giving them more ammunition to cause more division. Let's try to get a ceasefire, stop the slaughter in Gaza, but let's not fall into the trap of starting to fight each other in this country as well as over there. That would be the wrong way to go about things. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you got to the end of this, thank you for listening. And I hope that now this is over, you have a good day. We'll see what happens next in the media cycle. But anyway, thanks for listening. God bless you all.